Welcome back to Oneself. My name is Stephen Maher, and with me today, and with me always, is Adam Bartleman. Adam, thanks so much for joining me today, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Stephen. Always a pleasure to be here.
Likewise, man. So something, a habit I've been trying to stay true to, especially the last couple years, was that um, when you get bogged down in the day to day of life, in the routine, sometimes you poke your head back up and 6 months has passed and you look around and you're like, oh, I don't like a lot of this stuff. you know I don't like a lot of maybe the habits I've developed or where I'm at or just where I'm heading. And I try to recenter myself, change some things, and then but then you kind of like poke your head back down, and then the day-to-day of life happens, and then you poke your head back up, and yeah, maybe 4 or 5 6 months has passed again. And it's just a pattern I've been repeating. And so it's like
Hmm.
that 6 month cadence I really try to instill. Yeah, just a heavy reflection period, and checking in with myself, because I think that I stray from the path, just like probably all of us do, just because life happens, right? Like, just life gets in the way, and you divert from the path. And what is the path I'm talking about? I don't know. For you, I don't know for you. I know what feels good to me, right? Like, I know what feels right to myself. When I'm doing when I'm not doing music, right? Like when we hopped on this, right? It's like it's been a while since I've done a show, and I'm like, I don't like that.
Hmm.
It's like I don't like that about my life, where it's like it's been a long time, since I've done music in community. Like I'm always doing music by myself, right? But
Yeah,
it's been a long time since I've done music in community, and I don't like that, and I want to change that. That's an example, right? Of just straying from my path. Everyone listening, you have to ask those questions yourself and look within. And so, yeah, man, I just kind of want to just talk about, yeah, staying true to yourself, right, today, and staying true to your path, and what happens when we're misaligned, and how that feels, and how to course correct and get back to a life that feels good, right, internally. It might be hard, right? Like I was telling you when we hopped on, like when we have a string of shows, it's like I'm exhausted, I'm tired, but I'm living, you know what I mean? And like I'm
yeah,
alive, and I'm happy, and and it's hard work, but it's really rewarding, and all that stuff. It's just like everything I think that life should be.
yeah,
And obviously rest is important as well, but yeah, man, I just wanted to pose that. And do you have any opening thoughts on this topic?
yeah. First of all, it's finding what that path is for us. So, like for you, and for many people, it's a creative outlet, and really for everyone, it's a creative outlet. We just kind of expand our idea of what creativity is, because a lot of us think of it's it's only music or painting or something like that, but really it's however we express ourselves most authentically in this world, because that's how we really uh, paint the canvas of our life. To borrow, I can't remember where that quote came from, but to borrow that line I've always liked.
Yeah, maybe
But
Bob Ross.
yeah, Bob Ross, totally. Yeah, I was talking about him not long ago, but,
He's a great man. He's
um
great. The Holy
oh,
Trinity,
man.
people will say, is like Mr. Rogers, like Robin Williams and Bob Ross or something.
Oh, yeah,
It's just
that's
like of
good.
like of guys with hearts of gold.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so yeah, it's finding whatever it is for you, and, that can be tough for a lot of people, right? Like, finding what that most authentic expression is, and, just to take a stab in the dark a little bit to, like, get the conversation going. uh One great way to approach that is just to reflect on whatever lit you up as a child, right?
Yeah.
Like, what was it that you found yourself gravitating toward as a child, when there was no thought of, like, how much money is this gonna make, or is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Is this what other people are gonna approve of? What was it that you did? Did you like to go run in the woods? Did you like to make music? Did you like to draw? Did you like to just do whatever it was. So that can be a good place to start for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely been trying to pick up books more,
Mhm.
put the phone down, more
Mhm.
and, just, yeah, again, being in nature, right? Like I've been hiking a lot, which has been that's definitely something I like being as a kid, just going in the woods and
Yeah.
trying to cultivate all those things, man, all those things that just make my soul soar,
Yeah.
just really, yeah, just really yeah, made me happy as a kid that I'm trying to recreate now. And again,
Yeah.
yeah, music as well and talking about yeah, going to a different world, right? Like I love, books that are nonfiction as well or whatever, but just like the creative juices that books inspired in me as a kid, like the
Mm.
fantasy books, right? Like,
Yeah.
there was the Harry Potter, the Percy Jacksons, or like the Aragon Inheritance series. Like, yeah, I was really big into like fantasy, I guess, as a kid. But because it's like,
Oh,
because it's it gets you going, like it gets you thinking,
yeah.
just the creative juices flowing. Um, like I'm seeing these things in my mind that don't even exist, but it's like the writer's describing it, and I see it, and that was such a beautiful outlet. And it's like, okay, like how do I recreate those things now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just yeah, like whatever gets my gears going creatively.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, I saw it's really just I've noticed and we've talked about, plant medicine in the past. That's been something that really especially psilocybin, it's like a really points out to me like with the utmost clarity a lot of times. I'm not encouraging everyone to do this, it's like dude, it was just a tool, right? It's just a tool in this process of discovery of ourselves, right? But I've noticed when I've really been misaligned in the past and I would set time aside for a session, with the experienced people who are doing it in integrity, right? Like not just, doing it for like, taking a bunch of mushrooms and going to a party. Like that's not what I'm
Mhm.
talking about here. But sitting down and with a session and with intention and being like, okay, like what do I need to work on? And getting a lot of answers back, right? And that's just like another example of when I feel like truly misaligned and it's like, hey man, like this and this aren't things that you should be doing or like,
Yeah.
that you need to change. And a part of me does know like I need to change it. Like if I bring
Yeah.
that stuff up to the forefront of my brain, like out of my subconscious into the forefront, and I'm like, yeah, like I don't like that,
Yeah.
And but then it's integration, right? Can you take those changes into the real world, into that day to day, and like really be present and integrating those things into your life? It's hard, it's difficult, but
Yeah.
that's the point, right? Is that process.
That's the work, and like you said, you already know those things, right? And that's the thing. When people are sitting with plant medicines, a lot of the time thinking that they're getting answers from outside of themselves. Really, the truth is you're just getting tapped into the deeper layers of your own consciousness.
Yeah.
It's all within us, and especially considering always, if there's any question as to what direction this is going, always bring it back to oneness because the plant medicine example is one like if that's being called into someone's life, that's usually when a big shakeup is required. Like we really haven't poked our heads up for a while. Like we've really been lost in it and not being connected to our own awareness and getting lost in as you said in the human day-to-day stuff. And when it gets really really lost, that's when something like plant medicine can come in and make sense for the time being, but recognizing that it just draws our awareness to what we already are, and it's not something that needs to be engaged with in an on an ongoing basis. Um, so I think really what we're talking about here is like how to come back to that center and maybe how to come back without having to go down the plant medicine path. And not that there's anything wrong with that if you're doing it in a safe and constructive way with proper guidance and ideally in places where it's legal. Just
Yep.
putting that out for people.
Yep.
Traveling to a different country for an ayahuasca ceremony, whatever it is, that kind of thing. Um, we're talking here about how we can get to that place without having to go to those extremes. I think, it's at least part of this conversation, which uh which a lot of the time is just kind of getting centered, right? And what does that mean? And you already mentioned some of it, like getting out in nature, something like that makes you feel better. That is a great way to come back to our center, to find the to get that life preserver thrown to us when we're out swimming around in the middle of the lake, not knowing where the shore is. We can just do something like leave the phone at home, get out in nature, just go and walk and breathe, right? And just be and invite that awareness back in because it's there. We're never truly lost. We can get so muddled up with our own ideas that we think we're lost, but truly it's always there. That awareness is always there. The awareness that the plant medicine can bring in, it's always there. But it's just reminding us of who we are. So these are some constructive ways without having to go to those extremes that we can bring it back to center. Like, again, being in nature, being reminded of or remembering what we did as children, to bring ourselves joy. And, just spending time with loved ones, really, really making things simple. It's like it boils down to like a wellness practice and like your daily practice should be looked at or can be looked at as a wellness practice. Like what makes you feel good? What calms your nervous system? Because it's when that happens that we then get more clarity and that we know how to take that next step with more certainty, with more confidence, which I think is something that most of us are looking for in an uncertain world.
Yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure everyone's heard like anecdotal stories where, someone just up and quits their job and, does a 180, 360, right? Completely upends their life,
Yeah.
and maybe they realize they're, I think you're an example of that, right?
Yours truly, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah. So Adam, yeah, can you just tell me that, man? Yeah, you went from a 10-year career in emergency services and all of a sudden you're like, I'm not on the path I want to be.
Yeah.
And so maybe, yeah, maybe you can just dive into that a little bit and just, because I think those moments are beautiful. Like when I hear that, I'm like, people are like, you hear family or friends being like, what are they doing? They're throwing their life away.
Oh,
And it's
buddy,
like,
yeah.
no, man, like that, they're living, like, probably for the first time for themselves, for the first time in a while. Like they're not living for the life that everyone expects them to live or what looks good on paper. My son is, yeah, a firefighter and, we're so proud. And it's like, yeah,
Yeah,
that is a great career. That's a great job. It's an important job, but is that really how you want to spend your life, uh
yeah.
so yeah, man, tell us that story of just, your 10 years into your career. What made you think, hey, I don't want to be a firefighter anymore?
Yeah, I mean, like it is a great job, and I loved it while I was there for the most part. There are aspects of it I didn't, as most people would say, the politics, for me a little bit more. So as I began to shift and kind of go deeper on my own personal journey, the culture of the workplace really didn't align with me, and I kept getting further and further out of it. I kept becoming more and more of a black sheep in that crowd, which was fine, and was fun and was, kind of entertaining for my ego at times, but, yeah, ultimately, I just realized that it wasn't aligned with me anymore, and at one point in my life, it was super aligned, it was perfect. I was really living my best life there at one point. Like, I started out as a volunteer, as a young guy, went to fire school, did the whole academy thing, and building my resume, working at, volunteering at some volunteer departments, and then ended up getting the job in a career department, union department, and was just like, wow, like at a pretty young age, and I was like, when I worked that job, I was like, man, I used to do this for free. And now I do it, and I work at a busy hall, and I get to do this job as a profession, and I'm like, I would continue doing it for free though, because that's how much I loved it.
Yeah.
You know, I I got a paycheck put in my account every 2 weeks, and I never thought about it though. Like, when I had worked other jobs, when I'd worked in construction, I was always, like, thinking about, "Okay, I worked 10 hours today, that means I made this much money. Oh, I worked 11 hours today, that means I made this much money." I never thought about that as a firefighter. I was just like, I just go to this building and I hang out with my friends and I ride around on trucks and we train and we do cool things and we help people. And I'm like, this is just what I do because I love it. And for some reason, somebody puts money in my bank account every couple weeks,
Yeah.
which for me, and I'm a pretty, like, I live a very simple life. Like, for me, that was more money than I needed. Like, I paid all my bills and had everything, and, like, and I my bank account grew each month because I just, I'm a pretty simple guy. Like, it's good money, it's not, like, crazy money, but, um,
Yeah, live
it
below your
was
means.
yeah, and it was so, I mean, it was pretty great, like, I was doing what I loved, I was, living a very comfortable life, I lived in I owned a nice condo close to my fire station, I walked to work, it was pretty gravy, man. And, yeah, I really enjoyed it. I really loved it. But, as I started to go deeper on my own, journey of healing really childhood trauma to get a little more clear on myself, I started to become more and more misaligned with it. It was like I got too well to for it to make sense for me, because I think when I had a super dysregulated nervous system, the spikes, the peaks and valleys, the adrenaline rush, that job could sometimes offer was really, really appealing to me. It really, I felt very comfortable and calm and at peace in an environment like that. Whereas working in construction before, where it was a monotonous day, I knew what was going to happen. That would drive me crazy. That would make me really um, feel unwell. So it was like knowing that things were going to be uh, potentially all over the place, because you never know what's going to happen in your day as a firefighter. That was super awesome and exciting for me. So, anyway, to get back on point, I hit a point where I was recognizing that I didn't align with the culture anymore in terms of. It started with drinking for me. So, like, I used to drink a lot. That's very common in that culture, and I started to make some changes in my life, which included getting off of antidepressant medication that I'd been put on as a child, that I'd been on for like 20 years. Something in me just told me, like, this is enough. I don't want to take this anymore. And when I stopped that, then all of a sudden I didn't like drinking so much anymore, which those things are quite connected. The addiction with the daily medication, which I would call that an addiction 100%. It really tied into the desire to drink alcohol. So I stopped drinking alcohol. I started to make some different shifts in my life. I got out of a toxic relationship. I started listening to, like, different kinds of music, hanging around different crowds, and I did get into plant medicine pretty intensely for a few years there, and that helped me kind of hone my awareness and see, like, yeah, on paper I've kind of got, like, for what was for me a great amount of success. Like, again, I said, I am a simple guy, and I had my dream job. I had more than enough money in the bank. I owned a condo. Like, to me, I had a nice car. Like, to me, that was success. Like, I didn't need $1 million a year. Like, to me, I felt like wealthy. Like, I went on trips whenever I wanted. I did whatever I wanted to do, and I had enough to do it. But I recognized that I was not happy at all. I recognized that it had been about half of my career that I had stopped truly enjoying it. So, first 5 years I was there, loved it. Last 5 years I was there, it was kinda tapering off where I was just feeling like, I don't wanna be tied down to this one place, this one city. I don't wanna be, working in a work culture that I'm not aligned with at all, and, yeah, so I blew it all up. I went on a mental health leave to think about it, but really, I knew I was pretty sure I was gonna quit, like, the instant that I had that idea come into my mind, which actually did come after an ayahuasca journey when I was traveling, and,
Yeah.
it was just a keen realization that it was like, "Man, this is not who I am anymore." I used to be a firefighter, but the last few years, I've just been working as one. I didn't really, like, identify with it anymore, and yeah, I knew it was time to change, and it was crazy, right? Because it was a good job, pension, benefits, like, all the stuff, all the things on paper that a lot of people want, like, a lot of security, and I was just like, "No, I gotta let it go." So that's what I did, and, it's been scary. It's still a little scary. I'm still figuring some things out, but I can see that it was kind of a prison that I was living in. It was a comfortable prison, but I had to break out of that prison cell in order to grow more as a person. So it
Yeah.
was a choice to leave that comfort behind and kind of move out into the unknown and do something different. And yeah, I don't regret it. I don't regret any of it. So if it's available to people, I would definitely consider it. If you're not aligned with what you're doing, it's an important thing to think about letting it go.
Yeah, man. I love that you said too well. Like you
Yeah.
got too well, and it's yeah, because again, people on paper, it's like, yeah, you have it all. But
Hmm.
um some of us out there can't deny that, yeah, something's missing, and I had a slightly different experience from that, like, went to college, which, I'm grateful for the experience, but man, you know, it was expensive, and um so it's like, got a job in the industry I went to college for, and then 3 years into that job, and there's this famous Jim Carrey quote. He was giving a commencement speech, and he was talking about his father, who was an accountant, playing it safe when could have been like a funny comedian,
Mm.
and he was like, "If you can fail at something you don't love, why not go for something you do?"
Oh
Right? So
yeah,
it's like
man.
his dad played it safe, and then he still got let go from being an accountant. And kind of similar situation happened to me. Like I worked this job for 3 years, um, after college, and was let go from that. And then had this, and that's, met you several months later, right? And somewhere else in the world, but that was all meant to be. And kind of was had my hand kind of forced. Really respect that you kind of came to that conclusions and had the gumption to do it yourself. My hand was kind of forced just by, yeah, getting let go and like having my world shook up. And but hindsight's 2020, right? In the moment I was afraid, but
Yeah,
it was for the best, right? Because it launched me on this path that really had to go inward and analyze
yeah,
myself, and
yeah,
really explore what was happening, with my mind, because I was like, well, I wasn't happy, and so it's like I was afraid of like the the uncertainty. But
yeah,
like you, like, I didn't have any pressing bills, right? I always tried to like live again, yeah, like I said, like below my means,
mhm,
so I'm not stressed out about money, and so like I wasn't like necessarily stressed about that, but I was just like stressed about like, okay, like what next, right?
yeah,
And speaking of college, it was like I never really wanted, or I never really had the opportunity to study abroad. It was just too expensive, right? Like I was paying for college myself, and I've heard of all these people and they're going abroad, and maybe they paid for that with student loans. I don't know. Like maybe, they didn't actually have the money and went anyways. But I was always jealous of that. And so like that's what kind of like spurred me to go travel, right? To go have that experience in my later 20s that I didn't have in my younger 20s, right? And that's when we
Mhm.
met. And yeah, man, started this path again, yeah, of like truly just trying to peel back the layers of myself and truly try to discover. And
Yeah.
yeah, like you said you got too well, and I just kind of want to like that just really stuck out to me, man. And you say that quote, right, where it's like it's no measure of health to be well adjusted to a sick society, right?
Yeah.
And and I think that's relevant here, right? Where it's like
Yeah.
we become so adjusted to the set of cards that we're dealt in life that we think it's just okay. And we think it's normal to be doing these things. When I know a lot of us we feel like something's missing, right?
Yeah.
And so when we talk about like true health, right, and well adjusted to ourselves, what does that look like for you? What did that look like for you when you meant, like I got better, right? I kind
Yeah.
of the programming that we were instilled in us kind of fell away.
Yeah. That's a great question. For me, it was just a deeper awareness of who I am and what well meant, right? That didn't mean just being like, physically well and being physically comfortable in my circumstances, like having a good job, having a nice place to live and car to drive and having people respect my job. That was another thing. It was always easy when somebody asked like, "What do you do?" It was like, "I'm a firefighter," and it's like no more questions, or like or questions that they're asking because they're admiring the profession or whatever, right? Like it was easy. It was just very easy to go through life. Like I wasn't finding it to be a challenge anymore. And the real shift that happened to me, like a um little part that I would add on here is like I when I left, I was just starting to do the officer program. And that was something that I had in my mind for years that I was so excited about because I was like, man, this is going to be the next challenge, which obviously it still would be to a degree, but I thought that I was going to be able to make more of a change within that department, within that culture, once I was in that officer pool. And in the years and months leading up to it, I started to recognize that that wasn't going to bring about the change that I thought it would. And I kind of hit this point of like real disillusionment where I was like, I'm not going to be able to have the effect on express myself, really express myself in this world creatively. I'm not going to be able to do that the way that that I thought I was going to be able to. And as I came more into alignment with myself and really seeing what does well mean to me, it really became more of a spiritual thing where I'm like, I have to be aligned with my deepest, most authentic expression in this world. Otherwise, I'm feeling like a fraud. And that's kind of how I was feeling those last few years there. I was feeling like this is a job that I can do. I still get a lot of satisfaction out of it, and it can be fun at times, but I really don't feel like my heart is in it at all. Anymore. Like unlike the way that it was the first few years that I worked there, it's just like my heart is not in this. This does not light me up in the way that it used to. And I really am almost looking forward to like extreme incidents happening in order for me to feel like I'm going to get some sort of satisfaction out of my day. And that's not a good energy to be in. I was
Yeah.
like, I don't want to be like kind of hoping that a fire happens just so that I can like feel good. Not that I would like wish a fire on anyone, but back then it's just like if it's going to happen, I hope it happens when I'm working. Um,
Right.
but even that was just like, man, what like it doesn't feel like a healthy way to go about about my day or my life.
Yeah.
Um so so yeah, it was recognizing that like not just the surface level stuff was going to be satisfactory anymore. It's like I needed something deeper. And as I became more well, I realized, like, oh, it was really an unhealed part of me uh, that found this stimulating in the first place. I think that had I had a nice childhood, like, and in many ways I did, but if I didn't have some of the circumstances, the emotional abuse, some of that kind of stuff, the addictions, all of that kind of influence, I probably never would have been a firefighter in the first place. Which is interesting because, like, when I first did it, I was like, "Man, this is so who I am. I'm all about this. I love it." And, and that's cool. I don't think it was wrong that I went through that path, but I think when I look back now, I'm like, well, had I felt loved and supported and not been surrounded by, addictions and stuff when I was a kid, I think that I probably would have been an artist, I would have done something
Yep,
much softer and gentler, but
yep,
not that there was anything wrong with, again, that journey happened exactly how it was supposed to. I see it now as I was supposed to lose myself and then go through this process of finding myself which involved going through a journey of a job that while I loved it, and I still have many, many fond memories, I can also look at it from the more zoomed out perspective of, it was something that I probably wouldn't have done had I loved myself more. And I'm not saying that doesn't imply that all, firefighters or emergency service personnel of any branch, are unwell. That's not what I'm saying. There definitely are many, but just like there are in every profession, we kind of have an
yeah,
unhealed world again. Again, that Krishnamurti quote, "It's no, measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society." Um, yeah, so I'm not painting everyone with the same brush by any means, but yeah, I ultimately realized that culture, for me, from my perspective, as a more sensitive person than I realized I was at the outset, it was for me a sick society, something that I didn't want to be aligned with anymore, or that I could not be aligned with anymore, and I did not want to be a part of. So, and there were multiple other reasons, to why I left that job, but those were kind of like the core ones. It just wasn't me anymore, and yeah, like,
yeah, man.
but anyway, sorry, we're gonna ask some.
No, no, yeah, yeah, it's just I resonate heavily with that. Like, I had some moments I have some specific memories in my mind too, where it's just like the facade was already slipping internally,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
And so, like, and I would say something, like a meeting, like a group meeting, and people kinda, like, look at me, and I just like, "Oh, like, I wasn't supposed to say that." But, like, I just didn't care anymore, you know?
yeah,
And and
yeah,
so I should have left, right? Like, yeah,
yeah,
like, I don't know if you were, like, in a meeting with the on your shift or whatever, and, but I say something, I'm like, "Yeah, that's really not like a nice, like that's not a good thing." Or like we had some clients that were like sketchy people for sure, and I was just like, "Do we really want to like support this guy or like, put a
mm,
megaphone in front of this guy and spread his word?" And of course the company wants money, so it's
yeah,
like they're gonna, the company says yes, but it's just like my internal code is just like, I don't like this guy,
yeah,
I
yeah,
just, he seems like a scummy individual, but we take his money, right? And that just didn't feel right. And and you say that in a meeting, and people, yeah, people are just kind of like, maybe other people think it, but they're not going to say it. And like, I just got to a point where it's just like, I'm saying it,
yeah,
and that wasn't, and I think that's when probably the writing was on the wall,
yeah,
for me, for
yeah,
sure. My days were numbered, but, what are you going to do? It's just, it was what was in my heart, and I think to some level, yeah, like I said, like other people thought it was wrong, but I don't know, man. Did you have that experience as well? Like, towards the end of
yeah.
your where you're just like, people just probably looking at you like you have two heads when you say something.
Oh, dude, in many ways, because I just, as
Yeah.
I said, I strayed further and further from the flock,
Yeah.
for sure. I And, not trying to, like, point any fingers or anything, and absolutely including myself in all of this. It was, a very toxic workplace, and I think in many, high stress jobs, that can end up being the case, and I was absolutely a part of it, talking shit behind people's backs, complaining about the other shift, complaining about what some guy in the other shift did on a call the other day, like, what an idiot, that kind of thing, that kind of just negative talk, bullying each other, just so much bullying. It was crazy. But as I started to wake up out of that, and then again, the substance abuse, there's a lot of drinking, and I was one of the absolute worst. Not saying I wasn't, but um, yeah, starting to get to this place where I start again, and you listen to that internal guide. You listen to that. You find your north star, as you say, right? You start to feel it. Something feels off here. You start to call it out. I started to realize I don't feel good when I'm speaking negatively about others, or internally, like speaking negatively about myself, because it was always a mirror reflection. And, so it started with, quitting drinking, and then it was like that was a big one. People like I remember someone in casually mentioning it on shift, like, "Oh yeah, you quit drinking a while ago, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." My captain overheard it and just he had a bit of a slip, like, "What? Why?" Like, literally, like, such a big reaction. It was like, "Whoa, take it easy. No one's asking you to quit drinking." But it was funny because
Yeah, yeah, like, he
it
feels
was
like
a
you're judging him.
Oh, yeah, it was funny. But, so that kinda thing, and then it was like, man, I don't wanna engage in any of this negative talk anymore. And that was a process because it was such a massive part of that culture, um, where everyone's just kinda, like, bitter and angry and talking shit whenever there was an opportunity. And as I started to pull myself out of that, I would, somebody I have a specific memory in one day I was driving the engine, and all the rest of the guys on the truck, captain as well as the guys on the back were senior to me, and they were all like viciously ripping into a guy who was having a hard time in his life, and they were talking about how he was being kind of abrasive at work or something. They were talking about, they were just talking shit about him. And I chimed in. I was like, "You know what, man? Like, he's going through a divorce right now. He's got a young kid. Like, I think he's got a lot on his plate. Like, maybe we should show up for this guy, give him a little more grace, be a little more loving." It was just like crickets, right? And then somebody was like, "Well, he brought it on himself." And I was just like, "Whoa." And I'm like, yeah, again, not casting any stones here, because I used to be that guy who would be saying something that nasty. So absolutely understand and have compassion and love for those guys, but it was that type of thing where I started to speak up. I started to change my tune, and then I started to speak up and be like, "Hey, maybe we can do better." And that was kind of how I saw my role there the last few years. I was like, "Well, maybe it's my," and which was very egotistical, of course. So it's like, maybe it's my place to shine a light in a dark place. Try and make some change here, um, and, uh, maybe there was something to that, creating a space for people who were a little more who weren't following the rest of the group so closely, like, you don't have to listen to the same kind of music. You don't have to, go drinking. You don't have to play the same sports that these guys do, kinda like doing an alternative lifestyle at that place was, I like to think, set an example for some of the more junior guys coming in, that they didn't have to follow the script of, like, you gotta go drinking with the boys, you gotta, like, keep that code of silence when guys are cheating on their wives. You gotta take part in that behavior to be one of us, because misery loves company, and, we can all trust each other if we're in it together, that kind of thing. So, I was finding some satisfaction with, like, seeing myself in that role there, but, ultimately, a lot of that was probably just going on in my own head, and it was probably my own ego trying to, justify why I was, in a place that I just didn't really want to be in anymore. Trying to assuage those feelings of discomfort, but um yeah, ultimately that was kind of how it went. I started to kind of speak up sometimes and call things out, and it was generally not well received. I mean, but then again, it was also kind of my role. You know, first vegan there in over 100 years, and one of the only guys to quit drinking. Like I was already kind of like, and I started getting a lot of tattoos.
Yeah,
It was like it kind of
yeah.
rubbed some of the older guys the wrong way, which was again, I totally got a hit off. My ego totally got a hit off that. I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
I felt like I was in school again or something, just being a kind of a shit disturber. But
Yeah.
yeah,
No, yeah, I love a little mischief, dude. No, I
yeah,
totally get it,
exactly.
you
But
know?
yeah, man. But ultimately, it was like it that those were the signs, right? Again, had I paid attention a little more closely, I probably would have quit a couple years earlier. But those were the signs that I was on my way out because it just wasn't aligning, and I was starting to, yeah, kind of find amusement in going against the grain, which was, not healthy, I don't think. It was a little
No.
immature, but, was
Yeah.
part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, man, it's just you just I mean, you see hypocrisy, you see, double standards, when you're a part of a culture and,
Oh, yeah, big time.
you're going on a personal journey, it's like y the culture's over here and you're marching your own path, and you just come to this divergence that just no longer makes sense anymore, right? And you come to a point where it's just something's got to change, and responding to men, right? You see how many men you see the midlife crisis thing, right? Like that's like
Yeah.
where they're just like, I'm 20 years into my life, 20 years till I'm dead, and or whatever it is, and he buys
Mhm.
a Corvette or something, and
Yeah.
divorces the wife or whatever. It's like if more of those people had the presence of mind you did at a younger age, right? To just
Oh
shake
my
things
god.
up, yeah, like yeah, presence of mind, or whatever, gumption,
Um,
or or just, yeah, just sick,
the
or
grace of
whatever it
just
is, right?
the grace of God.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
To just shake things up at a younger age, to be more true to themselves. It's like maybe they don't blow their life, 20 years down the line, when they just wake up one morning and they're 50 and they're just so deeply unhappy with most aspects of their life.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think it's, you see those stories, you hear those stories, and I think they're cautionary tales to anyone, right? And it's never too late, to switch up your life and to do things for you. I love seeing the older stories too, where it's like someone becomes an artist in their 70s, or
Yeah.
I saw a dude become a stand-up comedian and he's an old man, and
That's
he's using
cool.
the old man thing to like be a part of his act, and it's like that's
Yeah.
amazing, dude. Like there's no end date to any of this stuff, right? Besides
Yeah.
death. um,
Yeah.
and even then that's probably, the next thing, right? But
Exactly.
yeah, man, I just think it's so important to recognize that if anyone's feeling these feelings, like you're certainly not alone. And I learned that too when I got out of my bubble too, man, and where it was like, the high school, the college, it's like everyone around me is living the same life.
Yep.
Where, yeah, they're, buying the house and starting the family, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? That's
Yeah.
just, there's nothing wrong with that. But when I, got out of my bubble and I met more people such as yourself, living a different sort of lifestyle that is not what was prescribed to us when we were younger, I was like, oh, like I'm not insane, for blowing, yes, it's on paper this good life that I have, right? And
Mhm.
just completely just like shaking things up. It's like there's more than one way to live a life. And that's okay, right? That's truly okay. And
Yeah.
if you aren't happy with your life, it's not like again, yeah, you need to blow it up, right? There can be a transition period, and, and to have another goal in mind, right? Where it's like if you're still working a job and still paying the bills in some way, it's like there's that transition period to, maybe you're going taking classes, all right, for the job or the goal or whatever you set in your sights to transition you into the next thing. And
Yeah.
yeah, man, I just think it's really, really important for people to recognize that it's never too late to change. And we think that, yeah, because we're not kids anymore, it's like, oh, that's in the past. Like we have to leave those things behind us. And it's
Mhm.
like, no, I think even cooler as an adult, where it's like you have your adult experiences and you have your adult intelligence and your knowledge as an adult. And it's like if you combine the ability to play when you're a child with all the experiences and abilities you have as an adult, you can create some cool stuff, right? Like you're not just a kid, like just fiddling around anymore. Like you got some skill behind you, and you got some experience
Yeah.
behind you, and you can create cooler things, right? And like that lived experience is such a gift. Like you said, like those memories of you as a firefighter, my memories too, and in my past, like they are a gift. And I did learn something. It's like, can I regret any of it? No, because it's like it's made the person that I'm proud of, sitting in front of you today.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, I really just think, yeah, just really, keep chasing that joy that brought you as a child, and then loop in all the stuff that you learned along the way and create something cool.
Exactly. Exactly, that's perfectly said because we don't like you said, we don't have to stop. We don't have to remain, pigeonholed just because, oh, we put some time in here, we put some energy in here. Like, don't allow any of those attachments to get in the way, right? Because like and they can be more than just the surface level things like the paycheck and the pension, right? Those golden handcuffs. It can really be like the attachment to a role, the attachment to an identity, right? Like in my case, uh it's an easy prepackaged identity role. Like, somebody asks you what you do, easy answer, don't really have to like try that hard. And that can be another thing that can hold people back, right? These identities, these roles that we're used to. But these are all attachments, right? These are all attachments that come out of this illusory reality, this game that we're here playing. They're not real, right? If you want to reinvent yourself, if
Yeah.
you want to live a different life, if you want to quit your job and go travel and live like a bit of a nomad for a few years, like and even if you have kids, like you can make it work. Obviously not talking about leaving your kids behind, but like
Yeah.
I saw people on the road, man.
Take
Like
them
I
with
saw
you.
people in yeah, I saw travelers in India with their baby, like carrying with them. And like you can do this stuff. You can homeschool your children. You can do wild stuff. We can create whatever life we want. We don't have to remain just stuck on this one track. And it can be scary to like blow things up really aggressively, but yeah, like you said, you can do it. You can do it in bite-sized pieces. Like I really did. Like I'd made changes over a few years. Um and it got a little it sped up. It built some momentum, and it sped up toward the end when I made a few big changes really quickly. But that was all just getting, because had to get used to it. Ultimately, like whenever we take that leap of faith, there is going to be something there on the other side to catch us, because that just is how creation works. And we don't need to stay stuck, as I'm repeating myself here, we don't need to stay stuck on that one track. I remember when I started to make changes earlier, like a few years ago, like I got out of a really toxic relationship. I quit drinking. I went from being at my old workplace, being like a really like kind of toxic, bitter guy, like, always, always making, some like negative comment or joke or whatever, to within a few months changing so dramatically that I had guys pulling me aside, like in private, going like, "Hey man, what's up? Like, what, like you've changed so like you're so happy." Like literally multiple times I had guys pull me aside and be like, "Dude, you're so happy. Like, what did you do?" Because they wanted to know. And then I talked to them a bit. I ended up coaching a few guys through their divorces. That's kind of how I got into this new profession. I was like, I was just doing it for free at my old job, and just talking guys through their problems, and to bring it back to my point, what I was gonna say here about, like, you can change your track, you don't need to get stuck like you're saying, because I talked to a few guys who told me in private, I'm obviously not sharing their names or anything. I had guys pull me aside and be like, "Man, like, I wish I had done what you did, like, when I was your age." If they were a few years older than me, because they basically tell me, like, "I wish I had left my partner at the time, because now we're married and have kids, and, like, these guys resent their
Yeah.
wives, whatever it is,"
Yeah.
and I could feel
Yeah, they're too
that
far gone. Not too far gone,
yeah.
but yeah, they're along that path.
Exactly, and I could feel the energy of what they were sharing, and it was so heavy, and I really felt for them, and I really my heart really went out to them, and, was still able to talk through some things, and some of those guys did end up getting divorces, and, obviously that's the right thing to do if 2 people are unhappy together, but, yeah, it's never too late for a change, and it's really is exciting. I remember being in school, like, see, seeing, like a senior citizen sitting there in the college class and, like, with all the kids in their, like, early 20s, and I always remember being like, "Man, that is cool. That's so awesome
Yeah.
to be making a pivot, later in life and doing something different," like, as one example. But, yeah, man, lots to think about. It's, if we're willing to make the leap, it's always, in my experience, it's always worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it can be scary in the uncertainty, but isn't that exciting too?
Yeah,
Like, don't you wanna wake up, and isn't there opportunity in that? And when I would wake up and it's like, yeah, like, that's a gift too, like, that uncertainty is because you can build whatever, you know what I
that's
mean?
living,
You're
man.
not like you said, like, these golden handcuffs and, these things that chain us to the life that we're currently in, um, when you're that no longer exists anymore, it's like you're free, to make the next decision, right? Like, you're not, like you said,
Yeah,
not pigeonholed into into this, this script that you think you're supposed
yeah,
to live out, right?
yeah,
And
and
yeah, there's opportunity in that.
yeah, if you look around and everyone around you is doing the same thing and you're doing the same thing, like it was in my old job, like, everybody is doing the exact same thing. It was like, maybe that's when you're starting to recognize that and it's starting to feel uncomfortable, that, in my opinion, that's when it's time for a change, when you're starting to recognize the pattern and see how you are just following a pattern, right? Like, everyone, drives the same truck and goes on vacation in the same places
Yeah.
and drinks at the same bars and has the same conversations day in and day out. It's like, oh boy, then it's time for a change. If you're seeing that, it's like time to
Yeah.
expand. Yeah, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah, no, I think that I really, really love this discussion, dude. I think that's probably a good place to cap this episode of Oneself. If you like what you heard, if you're resonating with anything we said, please help us in all the ways that are free. Become a subscriber, like, comment, engage. We're listening. If you have any thoughts that you would like us to call attention to, or, just discuss in a future episode, please leave them and we'd love to talk about it. Yeah, Adam, I really, really appreciate today's discussion, man. It's, resonating. It's always resonating, right? You know what I mean? I feel like I'm probably at that, that check-in point for this point in the year for sure. And so yeah,
Yeah,
man, I should really, really appreciate your time. Any closing
yeah, man.
thoughts
Too.
for staying true to yourself for this episode?
Yeah, just always go inward, find stillness. Like, stillness is where clarity exists. So, whatever that looks like for you, getting out for a walk in the woods or just sitting inside in a quiet room and going into meditation, stillness is where the clarity resides. So that's what I would impart.
Awesome. We'll cap it there. Thank you so much for listening.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.